Dr. Jazz.
You'll have a new album
Dr.
out, as I saw
Jazz.
on Facebook, and
Pretty
that's a,
soon, yeah.
yeah. And I wanted to ask you about this. Just kind of Mark Ferber and Henry Hay, the kind of regulars of for the last long time. I mean, Steve Wilson. I know John is in Europe now, so it's hard to get him.
Yeah.
But like, can
Although
you?
the last time he recorded with me, he flew back just to do that.
Oh, really? Oh man. Oh
He,
wow.
it was funny. He booked, and while he was here, he booked 2 gigs. Both days of the recording, he booked a gig at night too. So he really got his mileage worth out of that trip.
Oh man.
Uh,
No, but
I
I
just
wanted to ask you about this new record. You know, how was it? And where is it coming out? When is it coming out? And all this.
well, I got super busy after the recording was finished, so I haven't even gotten to mixing yet.
Oh wow.
I've
Okay.
done some editing, but I'm probably going to do mixing coming up the end of this month with Henry,
Oh, okay.
because Henry's mixing now, and he's actually very good. He sent me a couple samples of some work that he did, and it sounds great.
Mm.
And he's very Pro Tools efficient, and
Yeah.
he's like a Renaissance man. He can do everything. He assembles videos. Once he has the audio, he can put videos together. So, he knows that those all the Apple
Yeah. That
stuff you can
helps. Yeah.
learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
I'm still stuck on Logic. I think Logic is hard enough already, but he's on the Pro Tools and making movies and God knows what else.
how, how long have you known these guys? I mean, I know with Mark you go way back, Ferber, but also with
Right.
Henry. Like, what's the stories here with the band members? I mean, like,
Well, Henry and I were at North Texas State together, which is now called
oh,
University of North Texas.
okay,
And my last year, which was 89, was maybe Henry's first year or sophomore year or something like that. So that's how I know him from way back. We went to school.
okay.
And it's funny, like wherever you go to school, those people you end up playing with no matter what. So I have some serious friends who went to North Texas, and they're all the ones who are in New York. We all play together. I still play with Dave Pietro,
Oh yeah.
who's teaching at NYU and playing with Maria Schneider and every Darcy's big band. I mean, he
Yeah.
does all this stuff. And then Scott Newman, a drummer I went to school with. We used to have a band at North Texas called No Comment with a bass player named Drew Phelps and or Dave Phelps. His twin brother Drew plays guitar.
Hmm.
Or maybe no, I have that backwards. Drew plays bass and Dave plays guitar. Dave lives up here, and he's a friend of mine. But now I'm in another band with Scott called Spin Cycle, and God, we've been playing together more than 30 years. It's crazy.
Oh, wow.
And
Fantastic.
so that's Henry. Mark, when he moved to New York, I knew he was playing with Ohad, and then Ohad asked me to play in the band, and that was more than 20 years ago. And we used to do the Maine jazz camp every summer up in near Farmington, Maine.
Mm.
And over the years we played in so many different big bands and small groups, and he's played on a bunch of my records. Man,
Yeah.
he's played on
Like 5 at least.
yeah, it's coming up on
Yeah.
5, I think.
Yeah.
That's too many. I got to get a new drummer.
Oh come on. I love him.
No, he's great.
Yeah, he's
great.
amazing.
I
He's
love
amazing.
the guy. He does everything. He plays all the styles. He reads
Yeah.
great, and he works with everybody. He's just really easy to get along with, and what more can you ask
Oh
for?
sure. Yeah.
And new people, Matt Pavoka is a friend of mine from way back. he's playing bass on this record. Same sort of thing. He's been subbing in Spin Cycle for Phil Palumbi for the last couple of years, so we've been playing together a lot in that band. And then, you know, we just do gigs on the side in New York City with singers and other situations. And, you know, like he's a top call sideman because he can read really well. He plays electric, he plays acoustic, and he's just like super smart human. He knows he's one of the most well-read musicians I've ever met. You know, so if you want to do a long car ride, he's the guy.
That's good. Yeah.
And then Steve, you know, I was just, man, it'd be great to record with Steve. He played a couple last-minute 55-bar gigs that I had.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
You know, I just called him. I'm like, man, you don't want to come and sight read some music and play? And he's great, you know.
Yeah, he's a monster player.
Yeah. So, I mean, and plus, you know, John lives in Portugal now, so it's not easy for him to come and do gigs or record, you know, in New York. So, I mean, I'm sure he'll be back when he can, but he recently moved from the UK to Portugal. So, you know, he's figuring it out there, and I think he's pretty happy to get more sunshine. Yeah,
sure, man. He told me he wanted to move to Italy, but I guess, you know, he made it to Portugal, which is, I guess, even nicer.
Italy might be more expensive, I think.
Yeah, at this time, yeah.
But really good food. I mean,
oh man.
But Portugal has great food too. I mean, they have excellent seafood, and
I'm getting hungry now. Actually.
I know. Well, here it's that time of the day where you start thinking about food.
Yeah, I'm a little bit on the late side here, but still, I'm like, oh man, I would love some fish now or something. But yeah,
snack.
Yeah, but you also wrote music. I love the pic on Facebook you posted. You know, I always loved your composing since Parable and Most Folks and all that stuff came out. A friend of mine burned CDs. Sorry,
illegal burning of CDs.
Yeah, I know, man. But I heard that then, and I was like, man, who is this guy? You know, and I loved your writing as well as your playing, and you posted this picture of all the sheet music, and you know, I checked some blues for OM or Without Question, and tried to play it a little bit through what I could see from that one. But it looks.
I'll just put it in a Dropbox for you.
Oh man, please, yeah. But I wanted to ask you, what's your progress with composing? I mean, you've been quite prolific, like every 3 years or every, you know, with composing and issuing albums. And
well, I don't know, compared to some people, it's probably not so prolific,
but still, I mean, you know,
I spend so much time as a sideman learning other people's hard-ass music. Like I just, by the time I get to writing something, I'm so worn out from reading black dots. Like I need to sort it all out. But
does it go fast with you? I mean, with writing, or?
Yeah, I'm not like a super fast writer guy. I mean, I used to be much quicker. I used to be like, I'll sit down in an hour and bang something out. But now, I don't know, the older I get, I kind of second guess. Like if I write like 4 bars, I'm like, I don't know, that sounds like this one, that sounds like that.
Oh yeah, okay.
Sounds like Wayne Shorter, you know, like, I don't know. Not that sounding like Wayne Shorter is a bad thing at all, but
it's a relief that you say that, actually. Yeah, I have these things as well. Okay,
I can sit and crank out certain styles of tunes, but I don't know if they're, you know, worth looking at sometimes. I mean, but I don't know. It might depend on who's playing it too.
Sure.
I mean, during COVID, I wrote several bossa novas. For some reason, I was like just chilling out on bossa novas. But and they all kind of sounded similar to me, and I was like, man, I got to do something else. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm not like super fast composer guy. But if I'm under a deadline, I'll definitely bang out some stuff. What about you? Do you write a lot?
Yeah, if I have a a deadline, or I did now a project I'm doing it with Asaf Sirkis, a drummer from Israel. He's amazing, and he sent me drum tracks, and I'm composing on his tracks, actually, what he sent me. So, which is a different angle you know, I have like a drum and then I have to write something, and it's like actually more like composition, and then I chip in a solo or something. That's
Yeah.
fun. But otherwise, like you said, you know, like, you know, sometimes I would sit down and be like, dun, gung, 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 dun, gung, gung. It's another, you know, power chord riff in
Sounds like
7.
Weather Report, 8:30.
Yeah, you know, like, yeah, yeah.
That's a really great bass line, though.
Or, you know, you write like, gung, 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 gung. And they're like, oh man, the same 5/4 shit. It's like, and then I just, you know.
That sounds like Victim Sweepstakes.
Yeah.
I still play that one. That's one of the few tunes from my past I still want to play.
But it's like, you know, then, yeah, but if I push myself into different situations, then I'm like, okay, let's skip this, let's skip the rhythm, then something maybe different comes up. Or
Yeah,
but it's hard also. Yeah, I get the sense I repeat myself many times when composing, so I don't know if that's the same with you, or but
yeah. John Scofield said in an article once, he goes, I just keep writing the same 5 tunes over and over and over. but in his case, they're all pretty good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Really think of a dud, you know. But I love that record that he did with Medeski, Martin, and Wood.
Oh man, a go-go.
Go-go. Like,
Oh.
Those tunes are awesome. Like,
I love that stuff.
it's like perfect music you put on. You're in your car and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, let's put this on. Like, man, just chill.
Yeah, it's beautiful stuff. Yeah. No, but
Yeah, even my wife likes that one. Alan Holdsworth, not as much. She's like, what is
oh
this?
man, yeah, the same here. I love Holdsworth, you know, and I think you do too. I mean, I want to dig into
man.
that a little bit later, because
he's my hero.
yeah, did you ever see him live, by the way?
I did.
Really?
He came to New Jersey and he played in. This is a good story, actually. My friend told me about it. He was like, "Oh man, Holdsworth's playing in this place in New Jersey," and I'm like, "Well, what is it?" He goes, "Well, it's like this old warehouse they converted into a performance space." I'm like, I bet he's gonna hate playing there. But it was cool, and it was a great band. It was Jimmy Johnson was touring with him at that time, and Chad Wackerman was playing drums.
Oh, wow.
So man, these guys have been playing with him for 20 years off and on.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. You know, he had the stereo Mesa Boogie cabinets, and he had all, you know, he had basically like three or four sounds. He had the one that's like all like just incredible reverb and delay. So when he plays the chord, it would just,
Yeah.
you know, just fill. And then he had the like 2 basic distorted sounds. One was like medium distortion, so that he could play lines and maybe just a few little note of chords underneath. And then the other one was just complete distortion with delay and everything, so that when he really
Kind of
gets
legato
it's
and
just
what?
this
Yeah,
beautiful
yeah.
sheets of sound. And man, it was so incredible. It just, you know, you're just like, how can you do that as a human being?
Yeah.
Because you know, it's just like, well, that's what happens when you practice. You know, it's incredible. And the thing that's funny, I read he didn't start playing music until he was 17 or 18.
Seriously,
or something like
I
that.
didn't know that.
Yeah, and
Oh.
I'm like, well, man, what the hell? Like, I started when I was 8 years old. I still don't play that way.
Yeah, I mean,
he just got into it and just never stopped. You know.
yeah, he was. I mean, I transcribed so many solos of his, but rarely I got, you know, I wrote them down, but just to play them in tempo and everything, it was just, man.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's yeah. When is the first time you stumbled upon him? When was that? In college or?
Oh no, that was in high school. I was.
Oh, really?
I remember getting a Guitar Player magazine, and it was the first kind of. Oh, my wife is here. Hold on.
Oh, sure.
Honey, I'm doing this art interview. No, never mind. She doesn't know I'm in the basement.
Oh no.
That's fine. She'll figure it out.
Okay.
So yeah, Guitar Player magazine used to have these little, back in the 80s, they had these little records, super flat, flimsy records in the middle of the magazine. And one of the first ones was Alan Holdsworth, Metal Fatigue.
Oh yeah.
Like something, I forget which one, but, And then there was a transcribed solo, which was transcribed by Steve Vai.
Oh wow. Okay.
I'm like, well, it's got to be right if he did it. And so that's how I kind of, I had heard his name and didn't really know that much about it, but I put on that record and I was just like, my jaw was on the floor. Oh my God, this is guitar? It just doesn't sound like guitar to me. It sounds like, like saxophone with distortion or something. It was so out. So that, then you just figure out, through history, what's going on. He used to play with Tony Williams, and just it's incredible. But I think he did his best work as a leader.
Yeah,
it's kind of incredible. But
yeah,
and then like John McLaughlin, he also played with Tony Williams. Like the two best guitar players played with Tony Williams' band. It's awesome.
Yeah, John was probably also an influence, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
John and Alan, like my two favorite guys. I don't sound like either one of them, but
Oh no.
they're like superheroes to me,
Oh, it's there. Like when I first Parable, the first time when I first heard it, I was like, oh, okay, wow, you checked out all that stuff,
Yeah.
I love that. So, but then there is this other world of you. Well, you're like this. Your records, like you can play like this amazing fusionish solo. I mean,
fusionish, yeah. Like
it's not like under fusion. I kind of mean
no,
like
it's definitely fusion style. I mean,
influenced. Yeah.
The minute you turn on the distortion pedal and start playing
Yeah.
a lot of notes, that's the first thing that you think about. It's pretty much fusion.
But then you have like this clean sound, which is kind of like, I don't know, you hear Jim Hall or whoever, like who were the first guys that jazz musicians, or let's say jazz guitarists, that got you excited?
Yeah, I think just the usual guys like Jim Hall, Wes Montgomery, Joe Pass, of course, and then George Benson. I love that Cookbook record.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, when I was in high school, I got seriously into Pat Metheny. I had a bunch of his records.
Oh, really? Also, wow.
And my friend said, "Come on, let's go see him. He's playing in Minneapolis," and I lived in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So just an hour and a half car ride, you can go see Pat Metheny. And I think I was maybe a junior in high school. It was incredible. He had just kind of expanded the band from the quartet, and they just had released the
First Circle, probably, right?
First Circle.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So you had percussion and I think it was like a 6-piece band all in. And man, the sound was incredible. And somebody said, "Well, Lyle Mays is from Wisconsin." I was like, "Oh, he's from Wisconsin, man. He's a hero." And then he eventually went to North Texas.
Oh yeah, exactly.
To finish his degree. So it's a small world. But yeah, so Pat was a big influence, and the other Pat Martino, of course. Man, I just had a lot of Pat Martino records, and it's too bad he passed away.
Yeah.
But, just incredible. So between the mix of those kind of more straight ahead sounds, and then Pat Metheny, and then I got into John Abercrombie because my friend said, "Well, if you like that, you should check out John Abercrombie." And
my hero.
It's like another one of those cinematic players.
Yeah.
Like he just does everything well. He does fusion. He does acoustic. He does, he's a great composer. So, and his music with Richie Byrack was incredible in the 80s. And that's like some of my favorite stuff.
Madagascar and that stuff there.
Oh man. Great records.
I love that. Yeah.
They have a kinship together, with the dark harmony and the sound, and it's not like they're just shredding over the changes. Like they're really finding, where like their improvisation together is just really neat.
Yeah, and the tunes he wrote. I mean, John, Rael's piano waltz. I mean,
oh man, it's a great
timeless and man, I love that stuff. It's so beautiful.
With Jan Hammer and DJ.
Yeah.
I mean, I transcribed that tune Red and Orange, or Red. I could never play that part that's in 9 because Jan is just
Yeah, that's so heavy.
I'm like,
Yeah.
Danny, I don't even have chops to play that fast. I think Abercrombie's just kind of fluffing through that stuff.
Yeah, but he did come on. When you listen to those early stuff he did in the 70s, he could, he could
Yeah.
really burn with George Duke,
Yeah.
I think, and with those guys. It's like, man, and
Right.
really fast playing and stuff. Then he mellowed out later, but incredible player. I mean,
yeah, it's
the
funny
lines.
because he was in that band, and then I think Schofield was
Schofield,
in the band
yeah,
after him. Yeah, so I mean, it's funny these guys kind of cycled through the same
yeah.
sort of thing. And Stanley Clarke, people played Stanley Clarke's bands, and I don't know. It's interesting to see what happens and how
evolution.
march up
Yeah,
the ladder. Yeah,
yeah.
but it always seems to be like if you play with Miles Davis, that you're golden. Like all the guys who ever played with Miles, their careers were like, boop, that's it. Stern, boop, Schofield, boop.
Yeah, that's true actually. Yeah.
Robin Ford, even Robin Ford, who was not, exactly like Mr. Jazz guy. I don't know. But I mean, he was kind of a famous guy before he even played with Miles. But
Wait, do you have his first record where he played saxophone?
come on.
Really? Yeah, it's like
I have check this out.
I have it on CD. He basically plays saxophone on half of the tunes and guitar, and it's really good.
Wow,
I mean,
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's like in the 70s, and it's really like, man, really kind of jazzy-ish, but really cool.
Man, wow, this is good. I got to look this up now.
Yeah, check it out. I didn't know that. I bought his records. The trio with Tom Breckline and what's the bass player? Roscoe Beck. And
wow.
then I checked his other stuff, and I was like, man, incredible, really bizarre. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask you before that, Pete, like for this new record, paid for the other side, pay for it on the other side. You did on your own label, and I just wanted to ask you whether you will do this one also, or will you try to shop it around, or will you again do it on your own? Or
I don't know. I don't think the record label thing matters to people like me as much because, I'm not like a really famous, well-known person, and I've never really had that great a success with any individual record label. I mean, I was on Palmetto for 2 records, and then they're like, "Yeah, you should do some touring," and I was like, "I don't know how to do that," I was like in my 30s, and I just had to figure it out. Like, they're right. I'm not out there, but again, it was like I was trying to raise a family and make money, do club dates on the weekends. But it was a good thing to get off my ass and try to start doing some of that stuff. But I'm not an incredible self-promoting sort of musician. I've spent a lot of time as a sideman and, doing stuff like that. But I don't know if I'll find a record label for this one or not. The last record label that put out Range was Whirlwind.
Records, yeah.
But he's swarmed with people trying to get him to put out their stuff too, and his catalog is humongous now. So
yeah.
I don't know.
But you should set up a Bandcamp site. I mean, because I don't think you have your last record on Bandcamp, right?
I guess I probably should.
Yeah.
When you go to the last line, like my record's on CD Baby, and then like to put it on a digital thing, they were like, "Do you want all platforms?" And I'm like, "Sure." And it was $147, like just to do that.
Yeah, I know.
It's funny because I don't even think I made $147 on streaming. So I thought Bandcamp was on there, but I guess it's not. So maybe that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, you should really. I mean, it's like I've been doing records now for a couple of years now, and if it's not on a label, I put it on my own label, and I put it on Bandcamp, and it's once you establish quite some followers, it's easier. Immediately put out a new record, and a couple of dozens get sold immediately, which
All
helps.
right, so
something,
it'll just fly into the digital world anyways, somehow.
Oh yeah, sure, definitely. But
I think making videos of the actual
yeah,
recordings are actually more important than the audio anymore, because
did you do
for
that as
some
well, or
reason people love videos, right?
yeah?
They're like, that's the band actually playing the song. So this new record I recorded,
You did. Okay, super,
I did 8 videos
fantastic.
out of the 10 tunes. So then it's very expensive, but I think it's going to be just a way to promote my old ass one more way.
No, but it's smart. Yeah, I think it's smart to do that actually.
Yeah. I mean, who else? Maybe you can get some work out of it.
Yeah, we need to get you to Europe as a leader. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be there
It'll
in
be
the
fun.
fall with Manhattan Transfer if they don't kick me
Really?
out. But
Oh
yeah,
wow. Oh
they're
man.
adding guitar for this 50th year jubilation, jubilee,
Oh
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
They've never had guitar in the touring band.
Oh wow.
They've had guitar on various records over the years, so over the decades actually.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to do that, and we're going to be coming to Finland and I think Norway or Sweden and England. And I don't know, Slovenia. Who knows?
Or maybe Austria. If you're in Austria, I would definitely love to
Oh,
catch you.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Wow, fantastic.
I haven't put it up on my website yet. I'm still waiting to make sure everything's going to be happening. But my first gig with them is the Montreal Jazz Fest.
Oh wow,
July.
that's a biggie.
Yeah, not Montreux, but Montreal.
Yeah, but still, yeah. Wow.
But
Incredible.
yeah, it's a great festival.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, how
So
did
at
that?
least I'll get over in your hemisphere.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good
Sometime
one.
this fall.
How did the gig happen? I mean, how did it? I mean, I know you have worked a lot with singers and songwriters, but how did this connection happen with Manhattan Transfer?
Well, I'm good friends with the musical director Huron, and over the years I've done several different projects that he's produced of other singers, and also I've worked with Janice Siegel a lot
Yeah.
in some extra gigs where she was also a sideman, and just crossed paths with her over the years. And so those two people, plus I know the other guys in the band, Boris Kozlov, the bass player, and my friend Ross Peterson is a great drummer, and we used to tour together with Grace Kelly. So it's like a family of people that I've worked with before. So I hope it'll be cool. Who knows?
Sure.
They might not like me and kick me out.
Oh, come on. Yeah, don't play any of this Holdsworth shit,
We're going to get some younger people here with less gray hair.
Oh, my God. That's terrible.
It's great that you know all these notes and everything, but that's too bad for you.
Oh, my God. Terrible.
No, it's not that bad.
No, it's going to be beautiful.
You're going to edit this, right?
Yeah, sure. Like every 2 minutes cut, edit this out as well. Like it's like in the end a 12-minute interview. Like,
tapes plays.
It's terrible. No, but I wanted to ask you also this. Speaking of being young, when you I guess mid-90s or early 90s when you came to New York, if you remember how that was for you, like, and I mean, I did this interview with Tom Varner. I love his music, and I have, oh man, so underrated, and I think I have all his records with you on them.
Yeah,
but anyway,
played on 3 of his.
Martian Heartache and Swimming and the Communion thing, but when you came to New York, how was that like for you? What was the first connections? And
my first connections were guys from North Texas who had already been living up here. So Scott Newman, Bruce Saunders, and Dave Pietro, and Dave Rickenberg, and so I moved to Queens because a lot of my friends were already living there, and the rent was sort of okay, and then within a few months I blew through my entire savings that I had saved from working on a cruise ship. The summer after I split from school, I went to Alaska and I worked on this cruise ship for 14 weeks, and I saved up $3,000. And back then, it was pretty good type size of bread. And then I moved to New York, and it was all gone in about 3 months. First month's, last month's security deposit on a house, and that was it. It was all gone. And then a couple trips to the Blue Note.
Sure.
And,
It's gone.
And I'm like, where'd my money go? So I got a day job, and I think for 2 years I worked 40 hours a week.
Oh, wow.
And then I convinced my boss that I could do the same job on a 25-hour a week schedule, and she was like, sure. They didn't have to pay me as much, and I still sort of got my job done. And then I got a teaching job, teaching little kids how to play guitar at the Queensboro Institute of Music. So I was doing that for a year, and then probably 2 years into New York living, I found a club date band that needed a bass player.
Oh, wow.
Because back then they didn't need guitar players unless they sang. And I was like, I don't want to sing. I'm a jazz guy. So I ended up, and I've always played bass too. I started playing bass when I was in the 7th grade. So because I went to the orchestra guy, and I'm like, I play guitar, and he goes, I don't need guitar, but I need a bass. So he showed me how to play upright bass and how to read bass clef and play German style bowing. So I have my German bow, and I could figure that out, and that really helped. Like by the time I got to college, I could read trombone parts in Jack Peterson's guitar big band. So like over the years, just having the ability to read both clefs, like a lot of guitar players, like you put bass clef in front of them and just like,
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was like one thing I was grateful to do. But yeah, so I'm living in New York, and I started playing club dates, which are wedding gigs and, bar mitzvahs and parties and stuff like that, private events. And I was playing my electric bass, my Yamaha broad bass, and doing pretty well. I mean, for one club date, it was about what I was making doing a full-time job for 40 hours. So after a while, I'm like, man, I could just do this and not have to do my day job, but I won't have medical insurance. But so I was like, okay, fine, I'll just do this. So yeah, I just doing club dates ever since, and I don't do them that many anymore. I quit the office I was working with, but man, if you're not gonna do full-time teaching, or you don't do Broadway shows, then you kind of, and you're not like the world's greatest jazz guitar player, which I'm not, and I'm not working 6 nights a week playing jazz for $75 or whatever, $100. So yeah, club dates for me was like a really good solution, because once I learned the music that was required for that period, and I was playing bass, and then after a while I found a band that needed a guitar player, and they didn't care that I didn't sing. So like it's like you climb the ladder of learning how to make money when you first move to New York, because I think and it's probably still that way for any young musician who's moving to town. They're just like, how am I going to make this work?
Yeah.
Because my rent back then, between my 2 roommates and I think was $1,200 a month.
Oh, wow.
We were sharing an entire house.
Oh, wow.
And so whatever, that was like $400 a piece. And now, if you want to live, it's probably $3,000 for the same place. So, and believe it or not, gig pay has not gone up.
I know. Yeah.
I can remember moving to New York, and like I had a jazz gig that paid $50, and I'm like, wow, this is great. Now they pay $75 or maybe $100 if you're lucky. And you think of like the cost of living. I mean, that's 30 years. So musicians' increase in pay is like so nominal. It's like everything else goes up, but pay for music doesn't.
It's the same here.
The gigs I do.
No, it's the same here.
It's the same, right?
It's like, for some jazz gigs here, like smaller, you would get like 150 euros, let's say, for whatever. And 5 years ago, and it's the same now. I'm like, wait a second, people. I mean,
Well, 150 euros is more than $150 US, so you're actually doing pretty well.
But everything went up by 30% or 40 now, even more. With this energy crisis and everything, and it's just like the fees are the same. It's like, well, wait a second, that's not cool. but yeah, in the end, it is what it is. It's also, yeah.
But is that why they call it inflation? Everything goes
I
up,
guess so. Yeah.
except the bottom feeders like you and me. We're like, we're
Except jazz,
stuck
I
with this
guess.
thing. Yeah. So their solution is don't eat as much and don't drive as much.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
I have
But
my
you still
bike.
got to
That's
pay the
good.
rent.
Exactly. So no, but yeah, bizarre. I mean, it's really, but no, yeah. Uh, it's funny because when I talk to people, who came to New York even earlier, like in the 70s or 80s, and when they tell you about the rents, it's almost hilarious, And now when you say like, I can't imagine, what financial background a musician must have now
Right.
when he comes to New York. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, you got to have some help from your parents, or
yeah, I guess. Otherwise,
be willing to do a job.
Yeah, otherwise it's impossible, I think,
One of my good friends who I don't want to give his name away, but
Sure.
he worked as a barista for a coffee company
Oh, yeah.
for several years, and he was like, man, I can't keep doing this because I just want to play, and he ended up finding a great gig, and he's teaching at a college. So I mean, New York is brutal. There's just no two ways around it, and even if you're the world's greatest musician on your instrument, you have to have like another set of skills just to survive here. You have to
Mhm.
be willing to eat so many turds and turd sandwiches. Dealing with New York, you know, it's like a thing where there's so many musicians trying to do the same exact thing that you're doing. So somehow you have to stand out in some way or another, or you're not going to work that much.
Yeah.
So, and case in point, like during COVID, I was like completely screwed because I don't have any kind of major teaching job at a university,
Mm.
and I don't have a lot of students. So I started from square one. I'm like, shit, I got to get some students. And so I was like calling people. I don't usually call people and beg, but I was like, man, what do you do for students? And some people were like, well, man, you got to go on this website, lessons.com. So I filled out all that stuff. But again, it was just word of mouth, like
Yeah.
people started figuring out like, hey, this is a good time to take a lesson, because there's nothing else to do. So I got a few students, and that kind of led to some other students, and but then I realized my little PDF book, which is only 26 pages long, has no tablature.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
So I finally went in and put my entire book back in the computer, and now it has tablature and grids.
That
So
helps.
anybody who doesn't know a thing about guitar could probably figure it out now. So that took like several months to get it going, and I bought a new computer my old one was 8 years old. It just wasn't hanging in there, and people were doing these recording projects,
Yeah.
and so I got Logic and figured that out, and so yeah, I mean, it's weird, like we've all been through this thing now where you self-evaluate, like, is this really working? What's the next thing?
Yes.
Where's this career going? A lot of friends of mine just left New York. They're like, to hell with this. It's so damn expensive. I can live somewhere else and pay half as much rent and be happy, and maybe even get a car and deal with that. A lot of people that I know like live in New York never had a car, and they're like,
Sure.
wow, I can get a car now. This is cool. So,
Oh,
I completely understand.
yeah, no, I mean, so many guys move to Europe. I mean, from New York, actually,
Mhm.
or yeah.
People from Europe moved back. They're like, no, man, Europe is fine. I don't really need
Yeah.
to be in New York.
Yeah. Yeah.
The great thing is, as you know, there are great musicians everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of finding people you want to play with, and having a band, and getting enough work to make it, viable, and
Yeah.
your spouse has some money.
Always
That
helps, right? Honey, I need a new record out. Oh, sure.
I need medical insurance. Do you have
Oh.
any?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the one thing about the U.S. that just sucks
Oh, man.
ass.
Yeah.
Paying for your own medical insurance.
Yeah, it's heavy. I mean, I'm also a self-entrepreneur, you know, like I have this status, so I pay for this on my own. But when I talk to people in the States, how much you guys pay? It's you know, I toured with Paul McCann, and you know, he was insured like extra something, but he still had to pay for some pills that he was taking. I was like, man, you know, how much are you paying? And he told me an amount. I was like, are you serious? You know, it's just
crazy.
Bizarre.
If
like,
you can make it to you're 65, then it's cool. Like, you know, you're golden. But up until then, it's like you pay. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Bizarre.
There's no need for that. There's really no need.
Yeah. But Pete, I wanted to ask you, I mentioned Parable before. And how did that happen? How did you decide to do it? Actually, what led to that record? And
well, back then, before Matt Wilson was a famous jazz drummer, he used to play with slugs like me. So he just said, "Well, man, I found this record label. You should see if they want to record you." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So I just had some friends of mine, and I was like, "Man, you want to do this record? And I have this much money saved up, and is that enough?" And they're like, "Yeah, cool, whatever." And we all drove out to this studio, which is in Pennsylvania, called Maggie's Farm, which is owned by the record label owner Matt Ballitzeris.
Oh, yeah.
And back then, everything was recorded to DAT tape. So the time-intensive thing was getting a sound, and then once you play, it was not possible to go back and edit. So yeah, it was like kind of old school recording, even though it was digital.
Yeah.
So that first record, Parable, is just DAT tape. It's not even
ADAT. Really?
It's just, it's just DAT, 2-track DAT.
Wow. Okay.
And then the next one, I think, was actually ADAT, when you could record 8 channels of digital all in the same time.
Oh, interesting.
And then the next record is actual Pro Tools. Most folks, I think, is Pro Tools.
Yeah.
It's funny, like, yeah, you can see the digital evolution in my records. It's amazing.
No,
now everything's Pro Tools.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, I love those early records. They're beautiful. Also, the one with John Hebert on bass. We forget most folks.
He's a badass.
He's
great.
I love him and Mark, how they played. It's like beautiful.
His hookup with different drummers is crazy. I mean, he has a great thing with Billy Mintz.
Yeah.
And for a while there, he was rehearsing with Dave Pietro's group, and Brian Blade was playing.
Oh man,
on this one particular record, and Scott Colley ended up
playing. I know, I know those records. I have those. It's amazing.
And Brian was like, "Well, what about John, man?" Because they have this, Louisiana thing hookup or whatever.
Yeah.
It was bad, super bad. But that's Hebert. He can play with anybody, and it sounds amazing. He's a super great musician.
We did a tour with him and Gerald Cleaver on drums.
Oh yeah, and he has a great hookup with Gerald too.
Man, they were just like, and Donnie McCaslin was on saxophone, and
well, that's a great band.
Yeah, we did an album like back before these guys were like, in 2007, and
now they're top tier guys, but back then, before.
Yeah, it was like, I think probably one of the last tours Donnie did as a sideman, like that he could, before he like, whee!
Yeah.
But just, John and Gerald, it was just like, man, we played only odd meters I wrote, and they were just like cruising through it. Like it was nothing really,
like butter.
Yeah, like, where's the one, guys? I need help here, like, no. But speaking of Dave Pietro, I love that stuff, what you did with Brian and Blade and Scott Colley, those. And, but there's also Dan Willis. You have these amazing connections with saxophone players, and you seem to fit in all of these. How did your story with Dan begin with?
Good question. I think I probably met Dan doing either club dates or probably big band stuff.
Okay.
Big bands, it's weird. I managed to do a lot of big band work in New York because there's a lot of them. And they always need a guitar player who can read, which is a hard thing. You know, like not
Sure.
every guitar player wants to sit down and read saxophone lines or trombone lines or, you know, and play through whatever. So I've been lucky like that. I can read, and, you know, just because of that, I get passed off to people. They're like, "Oh, call this guy because he can read and he can do fusion or whatever and play upright, acoustic, or, you know."
Right.
So I think maybe that's how I met Dan, but yeah, and we have a long history of playing music together, and he's one of my closest friends. He lives not too far from me in Jersey,
Oh, really?
probably
Okay.
10 minutes away by car, and he ended up teaching my son saxophone before he went to the Eastman School of Music for his senior year in high school.
Oh, wow.
And Dan went to Eastman. So it was perfect. I was like, you know, if you want to go to school, you know, you should take lessons from Dan. And his sound, my son's sound, just went woo, just exponential growth. Like he would play like, and then after Dan, it was like,
Yeah.
like he found a sound with him. So I'm eternally grateful to him, and, you know, played on a bunch of his records, and Pietro, same thing. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
we just have a kinship, and I you know, I love what he does, and he writes great tunes, and
Yeah, beautiful players.
Dan, same thing, writes great music, and
Yeah.
yeah, I end up working with a lot of saxophone players for some reason.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, when I checked the records with you, like, I'm like, well, a couple of these and this, and it's like incredible. It's
That's what I'm proud of most on my website, the discography page. You know, I have a couple records at the top which are mine, and then all of a sudden we have this list of 100+ records, and I'm very happy I was able to play on.
and also lots of I saw. I don't have you on any of singers, songwriters records, but you've done. I saw on your website so much of that stuff. Like, how did that part of your musical world happen?
Good question. I think I was playing with Melissa Stiliano, who's a Canadian singer, and she used to have a gig once a month at the 55 bar.
Oh, really?
And just
Okay.
just exposure like that, like, you know, meeting her friends. And it's a funny thing about vocalists in New York. They kind of support each other and they come to each other's gigs. Whereas guitar players, it's not totally like that, unless Ben Monder's playing.
Oh no, that's everyone's there, sure.
When Monder's there, it's like everybody who's there is a guitar player.
Oh, sure.
But so when a singer is doing a gig, like, a lot of people in the audience are singers. So I think that just kind of, you know, trickled down to some other singer work. And, you know, and of course doing club dates, you end up working with singers all the time. So I guess between those two things, and again, I could read charts, and,
Yeah.
you know, even back then I was making charts for people if they needed me to make a chart.
Oh, really?
I had
Okay.
really good penmanship before Sibelius and Finale, you know, changed that landscape. I was actually doing handwritten charts with a ruler. And
Oh, wow.
so yeah, there isn't anything in the music business that I haven't tried. Just to make money, you know, you gotta figure it
Oh,
out.
sure. Sure. Yeah. But speaking of trying out things, I checked on your YouTube channel. You did a solo version of Body and Soul, and Alone Together, and on Hackensack, Monks, and I love how you play solo. You know,
Man,
we're considering of doing something solo guitar oriented or so one day, or
that's my biggest fear in life, is playing solo guitar without my loop pedal.
Really?
And in fact, you know, I heard Schofield just made a record.
Yeah,
He's making loops. Sometimes.
Yeah,
So I'm like, man, if he can do it, maybe I can do this thing too. But yeah, I mean, I can kind of fake my way through a tune, no problem. But having to do that for several hours of a gig, that's like my biggest fear in life, because I just feel like once there's a microsecond of space without some note ringing through, like, it has to be filled. Like, I don't know. It's kind of like panic mode. But I can kind of sit down and read through a standard type tune and make it work, you know. But when I was in college, I went to go see Joe Pass. He was playing at a hotel in downtown Dallas, and he was playing like the whole week solo. I'm like, oh my God, my panic level would just crush me. I wouldn't be able to do anything like that. So I had to go see him play, and I just remember just, being in awe the whole time. Like, man, he just sounds so great. It's just him, his guitar, and a little polytone amp. It's like, there's no pedals. It's just he's plugging straight in, and he had a mic where he could talk to the audience. And after about 3 tunes, he was like, "Okay, I'll open it up for requests." And from different parts in the room, people shouted out these tunes, and I maybe knew 1 out of 3. And he goes, "Oh, those are great. I'll put them together in a medley." So he played a medley of all 3 tunes, and he modulated in each tune. He wasn't just playing like this and then stopping. Yeah. And man, it was like, you really got to know your way around music and the guitar to, to be able to do that. But yeah, he's like still my all-time favorite solo guitarist. I mean,
yeah, those virtuoso records, man.
Oh man, you just like, how do you do it?
Yeah,
and him playing on Cherokee, Cherokee. And then once you hear Ben Monder play solo guitar, you're like, oh no.
Oh man, I can quit Ben. Yeah, I bought years ago this Monder songbook. If you've seen it.
Oh yeah.
Man, it's like, I've listened to his music for so long and played with so many guys that he plays with, and then it's just like a tune is like 31 pages long, let's say, Ecolali or Oceano or whatever, and it's constantly changing.
Right.
And it's not like copy paste, it's like this bar is in 17, 16, 17, and he changes like bass lines and patterns, and it's like,
and
man,
he remembers it too, and he plays it live.
Yeah, it's just like, man, how do you do that? Or Frizzell on the other hand, other spectrum.
Right.
He plays a G chord and it sounds Frizzellian.
Right.
And you play it and it's like, well, it's a G chord, but it's not.
It's a G chord.
Yeah,
it's entirely different. Yeah, it's weird. Like, no 2 guitar players are going to sound alike doing anything, really.
Yeah.
I mean, especially solo guitar.
Yeah.
And the beauty about Frizzell is, even though he's not playing that much, it's the way that he phrases in such a legato way that everything sounds deeply connected, even if it's 2 notes or 1 note sustaining to another note. So, it's really an art form in itself. And Ben is one of those few rare people where you're just like, oh my God, there's so much work to be done on the guitar. I don't know if I'm going to get to
it. Did you ever play with Ben? Or
yeah, I did recently. My friend Joel Harrison made this record of just duos and trios.
Yeah.
And we did a gig together.
I saw that on YouTube.
Joel Harrison and Ben, and there was 1 tune where we all played together, and then there were some tunes where we just played duos. 1 tune was a trio. And so I finally got to play with Ben on stage, even though he was 20 feet away from me, in this gallery space. But
beautiful.
it's fun. Scary,
Yeah.
It's not a comfortable feeling. I don't know how those other guys felt, but
well, Cardenas played with him, I guess, in Motion Band, I guess. So that was
exactly.
That was easier. So.
And my friend Bruce Saunders did a trio guitar record with Ben and Steve.
Really? Man, I have to find it. I know Bruce. I mean, I love Bruce. We're doing this interview in 3 weeks, like with Bruce. I'm so much looking forward to that.
Oh,
also.
Great.
Yeah,
he's one of my favorite people. When I moved to North Texas, he was the first guy I saw play in a lab band. He was in the 2 o'clock lab band. And I went up to talk to him afterwards. I'm like, oh man, it's so great to meet you. I want to go to school here. And he immediately pulled out of his pocket 2 tickets to this lab band concert, which was happening that very night. So he was like, yeah, you want these tickets? You can go to this thing. There's like 1 million lab bands. It's going to be 10 hours long, but if you want to come, it's going to be, you might like it and you can probably hate it. So I went to it and watched it. It was incredible. And, my first gigs that I ever did in Dallas were because of Bruce. And, I owe him so much. He's a close, dear friend of mine. And he finally retired from teaching at Berkeley, and now he's just playing gigs in Austin. And there's great musicians down there, of course, and like there are anywhere. And Austin's a beautiful town in Texas. It's kind of like a liberal vestige in this deeply conservative wasteland of a state. So it's crazy. I'm glad he's there and happy. It's important.
Pete, just not to take more of your time, I just wanted to ask you. I've read you've also played and recorded with Kenny Wheeler.
Yeah,
and Kenny was
on a record where he was a sideman as well.
What was that?
My friend Erwin Van, he's a saxophone player from Belgium. I met when I was going to the Banff School of the Arts in 1988, my junior year in college. And Kenny was a teacher there, Kenny Wheeler.
Yeah.
This is the faculty. You're not going to believe this. Dave Holland was the artistic director. Kevin Eubanks was teaching guitar.
Okay.
Kenny Wheeler was playing trumpet. Abraham Adzinio was playing percussion, African percussion. Don Thompson was playing piano.
Wow.
Who am I leaving out? Muhal Richard Abrams was also there doing band and composing.
Oh.
And Pat LaBarbera was there on saxophone. And Julian Priester on trombone.
Really?
So it was basically the Dave Holland quintet.
Quintet, yeah.
And then after Kevin, he played with Kevin, then the band with Kevin and Smitty happened. So it was like an interesting time to be up there. So that's where I met Erwin. He was a student from Belgium. He flew all the way over, and we had a great friendship there. And then some years later, he brought me over to Belgium a few times to play with his trio, and then he wanted to do this large project featuring Kenny. So I finally got to play with him, and I love his music. I think the record music for Large and Small Ensemble is one of the best big band records of all time.
Absolutely,
hands down.
Yep.
And just meeting him in person and talking to him, and he was a sweetheart, and great inspiration for composing tunes myself, and how to improvise, just listening to him all these years. And so that's how I got to play with Kenny. I put it on my resume.
I wanted to ask you that. He's one of my heroes, composing and playing and everything. So I was like, man, when did you do that? So
we played like 2 festivals, and we did this recording in 3 days.
I have to check it out. Okay.
With 16 musicians, and I think the record's called Worlds.
Okay, I'll try to find it. Okay.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's got to be up on the digital.
Yeah.
By now somewhere. But
I'll definitely try to find it. Cool.
Just another example where there's great musicians everywhere. It was 2 of us from the States. My friend Lindsay Horner was playing bass.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Banff.
Yeah, sure. I know Lindsay.
And then Kenny was from the UK, and then everyone else in the band, I think, was
Belgian. Yeah. Oh.
String quartet, percussion, drums, bass, guitar. Kenny, Erwin. It was a humongous group.
Amazing. I have to find it. Okay, super. I'll definitely check it out.
Definitely. Cool. Oh man, this is fun, man. I'm gonna look up your music.